Hello. So happy to see everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. I was thinking, as all of this was pouring in over the last few days, and I'm always wondering what's going to actually come forward in the moment. And I was thinking, I really admire these teachers who just start at point A and follow this really logical path to point B. And, but as many of you know, that is not necessarily the way it goes here. I'm more like, I don't know if any of you had a spirograph when you were growing up, but go around and around and around the circle, and then at the very end there's some sort of cohesive shape there. It's a little bit more like that. Oh, and I'm realizing I don't have water, which I have to have, so hang on. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. I kind of wanted to talk about something that's kind of precise. It's not really a technique, and I may have to talk about it in contrast to what it isn't, to actually begin to speak about it. So I think we all know and sense, and I've talked to quite a few people in the last 3 weeks about this sense of hopelessness, despair, what the heck's happening to our world, deep dissolution, even if it isn't within our own feeling body, mind, it's probably within somebody that we're close to, our kids, or our friends, our community, our mind. Deep grief, a lot of very deep grief happening, not only in relationship to the world, but just in relationship to the giving away of small self that is happening. So we can approach what you might call the struggle in relationship to human experience, thoughts, events, emotions, that whole cycle, from say a psychological point of view, right? And when I'm doing this in contrast, I'm not saying one is better, one is worse, one is higher, one is lower. These just exist, right? We can approach our struggle through psychological means, like, methods, self-help, the world of self-help and all that. Reframing, recontextualizing, working with the thoughts and the emotion cycle in a way that, just is generally more about psychology, which is beautiful and what some people absolutely need. Many of us on this particular path can approach the struggle through the hope of transcendence and the promise. All the non-dual teachings promise transcendence. Transcendence, and many of us have experienced a very transcendent way of being and orientation, especially if many of us have woken up and out of the human struggle. And everything there is flow and beauty and no resistance and total joy. All is well. And it can feel like the full meal deal at the time. It can feel like I made it. And even after the natural movement, the next movement of that which actually is and has been realized consciously wants to inform in each of us, come into form as each of us. Even then, when we're confronted with kind of, well, the up and out and the transcendence can do away with a lot of the conditioning, right? It can do away with it. You see through a lot of it. Our essential identity is no longer the struggle, the victim. That's no longer essential. We have had a direct experience of a more fundamental nature. But the thing is that reality is interested in the entirety of experience, which includes our humanity. So transcendence is maybe I might say a necessary step along the path. But if we continue to devote ourselves to source, soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, then there will be a movement to inhabit the realization as our human self. So in other words, here's the struggle, the ego thing, all of our programming that's still here, it's still here, as the world, as our mind. It's almost like we get enough distance with that transcendence to actually see that it's not essential and fundamental. But then the movement, which I personally call that of a bodhisattva heart, the heart sits down right in the middle of it, like Buddha under the Bodhi tree. Boom. That which will not be moved is right here, right now, no matter what is happening. And as what is happening, as it. And some of us are really skilled at transcendence. It's kind of the go-to thing, especially if we've acquired some sort of spiritual identity and relate to the teachings at that level of consciousness, which are gorgeous teachings and very close to the truth, right? But it seems obvious that our function within consciousness right now is to be a conscious bridge, you might say, or open field, like the Rumi field out beyond right doing and wrong doing. A fullness, an empty fullness, a function of empty fullness, so that the collective mind, the collective unconsciousness has a path for transmutation. So let me try to give an example. Say we're working with grief, but it could be anger, it could be hopelessness. And the visceral body, I mean, as much as we may have realized the all is well, the what's right here, the visceral body in response to, let's say, world events, or even just what's happening in your living room, I don't know, but is tumultuous, turmoil of some kind. It's a complete, total giving away to the actuality of what is. So if it's grief, there may be a time and a place to tell a story about the grief, to narrate the grief, to come at it from a psychological perspective or a transcendent perspective. But just for now, in this meeting, what I'm talking about is to sit down as what is happening. No story, no distance, no compensation, without agenda, without expectation, realized stillness, the stillness that is, the silence that is. And when we are able to do that, when we have that capacity, something kind of unexpected occurs. These very strong emotional states unfold, transmute into something unexpected. And I hesitate to say what that actually is, because then that's what we'll be looking for. There will be an agenda, if you know what I mean. Like, oh, Jen said grief would transmute into da 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 da. You know what I'm saying? Would unfold into, and then that becomes the agenda. That's what we're actually looking for, rather than a purity of openness, a willingness that will not be moved, so that the attention is consumed by stillness, silence, even in the midst of, in fact, amidst and amongst all of the struggle. The struggle is indicative of us trying to impose something upon what actually is. That's what the struggle is. Oh shoot, we lost Barbara. When we remain, abide, availability beyond agenda, beyond, you know what it's beyond? It's beyond self-interest. It's beyond self-interest. Not that this interest that we have to feel better, or to make somebody else feel better, or to make reality look better isn't a very innocent wish. I mean, I'm pretty sure any of us, given a certain circumstance, would hope and wish for something better. So I understand I'm kind of flying in the face of what seems really true on a certain level. But I'm asking us to look deeper. I'm asking us to look beyond self-interest and be as is. Which sounds kind of abstract, but it's actually really not. Because we have our experience knocking at the door quite loudly sometimes. Grief, grief, grief. It's not subtle. So the doorway is there. It's just that the well-worn path, you might say, is one of mediating the grief somehow, mediating it, or mediating the anger, or mediating the hopelessness, or mediating the despair. It seems like the intelligent thing to do. I get that. So this takes a certain amount of realization of one's true self, that which is beyond all notions of coming and going, hope, hopelessness, good, evil, right, wrong. It takes realized stillness, that which is the still point of all turning, the still point of the all dancing, and to be non-moving, non-expecting, no agenda. So strangely enough, something like grief transmutes, like lightning in the sky. Like this, be the sky for this energetic boom. Because at its basic, most basic, everything is vibration, everything is energy, without the story, without the personalization. And I'm not standing in opposition to our story or our personalizing. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just pointing to something else right now, where we willingly inhabit something purely, grief purely without story, despair purely without story, hope, hopelessness, anger, the words that are general struggle words. It unfolds. It strangely, grief unfolds into deep, deep joy and compassion. And then, if that is not grabbed and we are not moved, we stay, we stay, we stay. That too transmutes, as all things do, to emptiness. And not the emptiness that the mind envisions of a cold void where we have no, it's not like that. That's the mind's rendition of the truth of emptiness. The heart of the matter, where we are not in, where we're not standing with the agenda of fixing, amending, changing, altering, getting rid of. But we are standing in that which is before all opposites and includes everything. Nothing is excluded. The sky doesn't say, oh, I'll take this weather, but not that weather. The space in the room doesn't say, oh, the couch is okay, but I'm going to annihilate, the picture. Space is space, inclusive of all. It's like space. It appears to be nothing and completely empty, but it's inclusive of everything. So, we've been always talking about, we've called it many things. We've called it many things, right, over the years. Silence, capital S, silence, capital S, stillness. The always, already. The heart of being, which is what resonates mostly with me. The presently present, presence. Presently present, presence. It's before, right? And beyond, and amidst, and amongst all experience. There is no experience. There is no experience without the ground of awareness. Which is, check it out in your own experience. No attributes, no momentum, nothing to be said about it. No netty, right? It isn't this, it isn't that, it isn't this, it isn't that. Because it simply is. It's too simple to talk about and too intimate. So there's no distance, it cannot ever be objectified. It's radical subjectivity. It can't be an object ever. So very difficult to speak about it. And yet, right? Here it is. My eyes, your eyes, right here, right now. Absolutely still. But not in the way of the human mind, which is attempting innocently to be still in a very rigid, compensating manner, which is generally in denial of what's actual. It has to get rid of something in order to, okay, back to the still place. Okay, I got rid of that. Okay, back to the still place. It's not that the human mind is at all bad, or that the perception of duality is something we should be, in opposition. Do we see the irony in that, right? Of going to war against war? Of going to war against war. It's rather recognizing the true nature, which is, call it what you will. Different things make more sense in different phases. The ground of our being, the root, the heart of being, the clear light of awareness, the always, already, presently presence. That. And inhabiting in a mountain of devotion sort of way, of availability, beyond availability, openness, unprotectedness, fullness, inhabiting that in the midst of the mind's perception of reality. And only then does the mind's perception, that outer coating, hopelessness, grief, anger, war, only then does it crack open, unfold into what actually is. What actually is. And it does feel a little counterintuitive, right? Especially when we are have aligned ourselves, pledged allegiance to duality. That's that Rumi request, invitation, where he says, out beyond right doing and wrong doing is a field. I'll meet you there. When hearts meet there, reality is too full to even talk about. We can do it just as an experiment. You don't even have to believe in it or even have any previous experience in it. Just the next time one of us bumps up against that thing, and then the mind begins to narrate and tell us where it came from, how it came to be, and it starts telling us about the person who is experiencing it and all of that. Just in that moment, sit down. Let it be. Like a flash of lightning in the sky. Become the conduit for the pure experience of it, and it, of its own accord, naturally transmutes into a more fundamental form, a more essential form. And the mind, if we sit there as realize stillness, realize silence, the silence that is right now, right now. The mind may begin to sort of sense the emptiness that's coming. There's not going to be I'm not going to have this story anymore. It's transforming before my very eyes. The story of war, the story of whatever it is that we are impressing continuously upon the earth. And that sense of emptiness can bring up a lot of fear. And many of us have felt that. We've felt that existential fear of like, well, what? But the emptiness is not void. The emptiness is pregnant with potential. It's pregnant with, it's a pregnant emptiness, a deep, dark, mysterious unknowingness that is before the decision to believe in separateness. It's before that. And it's beyond all notions of good and bad and all of that. So it is sources. It is the unconditioned mind of God, which is pure potential, because the human mind has the ability to form body mind, but it does not have the ability to create. But when it lends its formingness to creation that is, that's heaven on earth. That's heaven on earth. It's originality, you might say. Origin. It's all that stuff that in the mystical language of the Garden of Eden, not things that religions have tried to impose on us, but the mystical truth embodied in that wording. The garden before good and evil. Our original selves is emptiness and creative substance for source. I don't know. I feel like there's got to be a different way than just warring against war, or wishing and hoping for utopian transcendence. And in this experience, when reality, what actually is, what's actually being experienced is not fought with, or there's no attempt to alleviate it somehow, or get rid of it, not include it, tell a story about it, mediate it, put a coating over it, then the wisdom of creation moving unfolds whatever's happening in a fundamentally loving way. And one form that I was so sure was this anger, and it had this cause and this story and this Jennifer owning it, and I was so sure about it, transmutes into and nothing. It's not of our mind, the human minds. When the mind is in service, our individual mind, our 8 billion mind worlds, 8 billion mind worlds, when it's given to the heart, the root of the spiritual heart of existence, it blooms as a creative function. Things dawn on us as a individual and as a collective that we've never thought about before. Ways and means beyond division. Beyond division. We don't even know, like, wow. I mean, boy, I can really remember a phase where when this tide was turning here, and there would be the very obvious Jennifer Tyler conditioned, same as it ever was, same as it ever was, same as it ever was station, tuned in, and I could just, and then there would be this like, I'd be like, whoa, where did that come from? Whose thoughts are those? It's fresh. So that all this beautiful human innovation and technology and knowledge, like the internet, like the splitting of the atom, will be as it was intended, without a layer of good and evil. There is only in-serviceness, in service to love, in service to wholeness, in service to love. I had intended on reading My Secret is Silence, the one Jan always reads at retreat, with sacred open hands, But then I turned to something different in Adya's book that really hit home. I just opened the book and there it was. It's called Be Done With It. Be done with it. Today, I commend my spirit unto the grace of the great way. Whether consciously or not, this has always been the doorway to liberation. All you lovers of truth and all you true lovers, now is the time to be done with it. Wash your battle-scarred hands in this presence among us. Cast off your warrior's clothing and slip into your night slippers. Untie your hair or cut it off. The hidden one is present and doesn't care where you've been, what you've done, or what you're doing now. Commend all of yourself, body, mind, and spirit, to this grace. Slip out into the night air, into the waiting, quivering birth of this golden heart. Lean down now like wet green grass and kiss the bottoms of your feet. The quivering birth of the golden heart. But it doesn't care where we've been, what we've done, or what think we're doing now. It's too immediate for any of that. It's too immediate. What keeps coming to mind is heaven is spread upon the earth for those of us who have eyes to see. And this is the new I, like the new earth, but it's not new, it's original. It's original I-ness. Okay. Thanks for listening.